We got a good show lined up for you guys today. Welcome to another edition of Growth Monday. All about growth of your career, your business, your network, whatever it is. We're all about growth, and I've got a great guest with me today. We're going to talk a lot about communication, and really within communication, kind of mindfulness and intentionality towards communication. I got a great guest, and he's a senior recruiter with Common Spirit. Welcome to the show, Mr. Leon Fress.
Thanks, Rollis. Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Enjoyed watching your episodes and really getting to engage and learn from you and your other guest speakers that you have. So I'm honored to be able to speak on this topic today.
Absolutely, I am too. And as you guys are coming in, those of you who are watching, let us know in the comments where you're signing in from. Love to know what part of the country or what part of the world you're actually signing in from. And then also let us know what you think about the communication today between recruiters and candidates, or perhaps if you're a recruiter and a hiring manager. And then also those of you who are candidates who are looking for specific jobs and you're on these interviews, how you can perhaps practice some of these same things when you're communicating with the hiring manager yourself. So those are all scenarios I think we'll find ourselves in at one point or another, right, Leon? Either we're going to be hiring somebody, or we're trying to get a job. What do you think?
You know, that's such a good point, because recruiters, we can sit on both sides of the desk, right? We have a unique perspective sitting on this side of the desk, and then me, myself, I've been on the other side being a candidate, right? So it's always a good perspective, and to really take notes of how other recruiters, when you go through the process, take notes of what worked, what didn't work so well. I think that's vital to really evolving as a recruiter or a talent acquisition partner in today's, with everything that's going on in today's society and in the world. You have to evolve almost from each day to the next. I catch myself, being more on text when I'm communicating with candidates, just because of the nature of the instant communication, right? Versus an email or versus a phone call. I think that is key too. And part of that is learning your candidates. What is their preferred communication style, right? You need to know how you're going to be able to access them when you need to be able to, and versus when they're going to be available and they need the information they need, so that maybe you're getting closer to the offer stage or scheduling a second interview. These are all vital things in communication. And I kind of higher up to that, I think it's part about being mindful. And what we've talked about in my business and what I've shared with my fellow colleagues is you really have to treat each candidate differently and uniquely as they are. And it takes effort and it takes time, and it is not easy all the time, right? But that's the nature of our business that we're in today. When you're dealing with people, you can't treat them really as a transaction. And that is one of my core beliefs, that I pride myself on being as sincere and authentic as I can be with my candidates. And I've received a lot of feedback, thankfully, on that. So I think it's working. At least that's what I hear.
I appreciate that. I could tell that you, just based on our conversations and the interactions I've had with you, you definitely are intentional with your communications. One of the things that Judith said, she says, late here, but stop by quickly. She's in Finland, Leon. So you got somebody from Finland watching.
Wow.
Yeah, welcome.
How cool.
Yeah, welcome,
How
Judith.
awesome is that?
Yeah, Judith she was on commenting on one of the shows I was on with Ahmed Khalid. We had a nice show last week, and so she was on there. I got a chance to meet her through there. It's just an overall community. It's like a community within a community. This live stream, I love it.
That's so awesome, Rose, and you've done such a good job of bringing that community together. And I think, like we talked about growing the network, I mean, this is how you do it. You engage, and especially times like this where you can't necessarily meet face to face. This is such a great avenue to really learn and grow, both professionally, your network, and anything else. I can't rave more about how awesome these are.
Oh, wow. Well, I appreciate that. And Judith says, love the approach, Leon. So she likes your approach. I want to talk about mindfulness, because this is what you presented, something you want to talk about. First of all, explain to our audience, when you say mindfulness in our communication, what does that mean to you? So we're all on the same page and we understand.
Sure, and I'll tell you, Rollis, when I did this presentation about 2 weeks ago internally to our company, the way I opened it up is, how do you say it, right? What does it mean to you? Is there a phrase? Are there some words? To me, mindfulness is, the words that I used. Really, I also added empathetic, sincere, authentic, real. A lot of people said in the moment, undistracted, present. These things there, and there's no wrong or right answer. It's how you feel, right? But and we can really deep dive into mindfulness, and you can see just in my face, I can get on a soapbox about this. Mindfulness to me also starts internally, because I one of my sayings is you always have to work from the inside out, right? So as recruiters in this case, we have to be in the right mindset. We have to be mindful of ourselves, what we're feeling, whether that's stress, anxiousness, what have you, right? We have to come to terms with these with ourselves first before we go outward and practice that mindfulness. Because to me, I don't think that I would be as good of a recruiting partner to my candidate, to my client, to my hiring manager, if I didn't center myself in mindfulness, right? So it's all about what does that mean to you? How do you do that? Is it taking a couple of breaths? Is it acknowledging the stress and writing it down? Or is it taking a walk, right? One of the neat things I learned when I was kind of researching a little bit more about mindfulness, someone said, take those things that are bothering you right now in the moment, write them down, crumple the piece of paper up, throw it away.
Oh yeah, I like that one. I like the throwing away part. That's so important. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's things like that. So mindfulness to me is really kind of, in essence, an overarching thing is centering yourself so that you can be fully engaged in the conversation, in the meeting, in the whatever you're about to encounter on, so that you're fully present to really take down all the details that they're about to come your way.
I love that. Okay, so we got a question in the comments. One thing I wanted to add to what you just said is someone gave me some very good advice. I don't know why I haven't done it again since then. This was years ago. They said, write down all the issues that are bothering, like kind of what you just said. Just write them all down. Just keep writing. And I kept writing and writing and writing. And when I got done, I made sure I tore that thing up or I threw it away. But it was like I was almost emotionally tired to the point where I took a long nap afterwards. It took a lot out of me.
But see, Rollis, I love that, because that shows you what it's doing to your body, how you felt it, right? These things that are in our head, these feelings, they do make us feel.
Yeah.
They have an impact on our body.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's you being in tune with being mindful about yourself, and your body's telling you, man, that was exhausting. Yeah. Right.
That's a good point.
So that's all.
Okay. So Judith says, I missed it here. I had it. She says she loves your approach. I think I told you that. Oh, she says, awesome way to learn with and from wonderful people. Amazing to spot all the people with so genuine and beautiful attitudes. Thank you, Judith. Appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate that comment so much. I just want to see if the rest of the audience agrees with me. And it looks like they do. Thank you very much. And then Vicky Knowles. Welcome, Vicky. She says, how do you manage ageism in hiring when you have a qualified candidate? So have you had to deal with that, Leon? And if so, how did you deal with that?
That's such a great question. And I struggle with that because I believe that, and when I say struggle with it, because the next phrase I say, age is just a number. And I believe in that outside of work and inside of work. I look at your experience, and really, I treat you as a person. My approach there is, I'm pretty objective, right? I irrelevant of so your resume goes back sometime, you're well tenured, but can you do the job? And then
yes.
I want to know, and this is me being mindful in the conversation. What's your goal? What do you want to do? And it's funny. I bring a light approach to it. When I see someone that may have some depth in their resume, I lighten it up by saying, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be? Just to really put some light to it, because I want to know what their end goal is, right? Yeah. And this helps me determine whether this position is going to be a right fit for them or not, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's important. just because you're qualified, that's great. And I'm glad you are. But we need to understand what motivates you every day, uh, what gets you out of bed, what really helps you thrive. And that's why I believe in making that match in that fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I call myself, a relationship cultivator, because when you cultivate, to me, it's always ongoing, it's always evolving, versus just connecting, right? And I love being able to talk to my candidates and really get to know them almost on a personal level,
Right.
um, and I've established such great connections over time that people still reach out to me, just for either advice or just to check in. And that's what I believe in. When you're cultivating and being mindful in those relationships, um, you benefit in so many different ways.
Very true.
But really, back to the ageism thing. Look, I look at it. Can you do the job? And really, is this the job for you? And we dive into that a little bit more. So that's how I handle it. I'm not sure how others may handle it, but to me, I try to just remove the number altogether.
Yeah, and I agree with you. One of the things that I love, in something Lou Adler, if you ever watch Lou Adler or follow his stuff, you'll hear him say this quite a bit. Is like, can you do the work? Can you do the job? And so that's the thing I like to ask the hiring managers when they're looking at a certain person and they have these concerns. But can this person do the work? Can they do the job? Based on what you can see, based on the skill set, can they do the job? If they can, then they're a viable candidate. Doesn't matter what the age is,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So I love to keep asking, and I don't know if I ever dealt with a hiring manager enough, they would get tired of me saying that. But I'm going to keep saying that every single time because, put those things to the side. Can they do the job? That's the main thing. And if I've got I don't know if Vicky, if you're a recruiter or if you are the candidate or whatever the case is, but yeah, I know if I was a recruiter, I would want to do what I could to remove those prejudices up front. So this situation of having a 4 or 5 page resume with 30 years of work history, I don't know if I'm a proponent of that. I'd almost rather give me the last 10 years, and then we can give them more later whenever you fill out the application. I don't know how you feel about that, Leon, or if that's even accepted, but I mean, I would encourage a candidate to not delve into every single job they've had over the past 30 years.
That's a good approach, Rollis. I think that what I like to see is they'll list a good 10 to 15, but I think here we go again. But I think it's about being mindful about the positions they're applying to, right?
That's
If
true.
it's a senior level position, if it's a senior level position, I need to see all that relevant experience that has led you up your career growth. Tell me the story through your resume that's led you up to this director that wants to be a VP. Now, for more of an entry level, what I'd like to see there is maybe 10 years, good 10 years of experience that's relevant to that. And if you have more, then just put the position and the time served at the company, right? No details, but just to help, just abbreviate the resume a little bit. And then we can dive more into it and say, oh, tell me more about, this job I see that you have listed here beyond the 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that's a good approach, contingent on the position. Again, got to be mindful about what you're applying to and
so
how
true.
that adjusts, right?
That's a great, thank you for checking me on that one, because that's a very valid point, because the more senior the role, the more experience you want to show. So I like that point, is being flexible. Now, Judith says, Leon, what made you take this humane approach? Where did you come from?
Really, I have to. This is strictly on a personal level. I owe this to my parents. My parents, are both actually my mother still works today, have unique jobs. My mother is a flight attendant,
Wow,
and has been doing it for 41 years.
that's amazing.
My father was a firefighter for the city of Houston for 41 years after he retired.
Wow.
And so what's interesting is both. I think you get the customer service from my mother who's dealing with passengers, and really my mom has not a single mean bone in her body. To be honest, she's always the life of the party, very very kind. Always, her favorite thing is doing scrapbooks, and she'll give scrapbooks for gifts, and she's just very thoughtful. My father being in that, the emergency services industry, having that compassion, having the sincerity of helping people. I think just having those combined, and I'm a product of them. I think it's just natural for me to really uh, to be engaged and to really want to know more about people. Um, you know, I one of my things again that I say, good people deserve good things, and I tell my candidates that. When I've extended offers to people that have gone through hard times and may shed some tears on the call. Honestly, I will tell you, they say there's no crying in business, but sometimes I feel it with them, right? I'm empathizing with them in the moment. I feel for them, and I'm happy for them. And so that's just me. Ask my brother. I'm sure he'll give you a different outtake on who I really am, but we're complete opposites. So, but that's how I came up.
I think
just my parent.
I think a lot of people. Sorry to make you. I think a lot of people. They even though it seems like a numbers thing because they're on this applicant tracking system. There's literally hundreds of positions. They're entering. They're not getting any feedback, and it's easy to just think, oh well, they're just like they're unfeeling. Like these people don't have feel, but we do. I mean, recruiters are probably the most feeling people I know, in terms of, really connecting with their candidates. At least the very good ones that I've seen, connecting with the candidates and really getting emotionally, in some cases, emotionally involved to want to make sure because there's a term about fighting for your candidate kind of thing. You develop this little relationship. It's like a mini relationship you develop with them, and you want to go to bat for them because maybe a hiring manager is starting to filter or weed them out, like using Vicky's example of ageism. Maybe they feel like the person's a little bit too old, and they may use a little language to kind of sweeten it up a little bit. But at this end of the day, it's still ageism, right? Oh, well, I think they're a little bit too seasoned for this position, or maybe they're at the twilight of their career, and we need to go younger with this particular position because we've got some older ones that are getting towards retirement age. So there's ways that they can kind of sweeten it up, but it's still ageism, no matter how you sweeten it up.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right, but I always combat that question with, well, how do you know? How do you know they're at the end of their career? Yeah. What? Just because you're counting numbers now, you're making an assumption that can be completely inaccurate.
Right.
So let's talk to them and let's find out again. What is your goal? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Some will be very honest. We'll tell them, well, I've got another 5 years left in me, and okay, great. Or some say, I just can't retire. I'm not one of those people. I'm like, good for you. But you don't know until you talk to them.
I agree 100%. And then here's the other thing that gets me is sometimes I'll be speaking with a hiring manager. This is years ago. I'll be speaking with a hiring manager. They've got a department that has 50% attrition, which basically means that the average tenure is about 6 months. So why would you be afraid of hiring someone who's a little bit older in their career that's probably more likely to stay with you for several years, which would be longer than your current tenure is right now? Just go ahead and make the call. Do it. Because a lot of those folks would be very loyal. I know I've talked with someone that said, you know what, I got about 5 years left, so I want to at least do about 5 years in my career. 5 years is a great long tenure for a lot of companies to do great work. So
for sure, and you bring up a good point. I mean, I use my parents as the example again. My dad went into the fire department when he was 18, never looked back. Right? Didn't switch companies. He was HFD through and through. And so anytime that I would get a job, he was like, what? You're leaving? You're moving somewhere else?
Yeah.
My mother, the same way. My mother, she's been with the same airline, even through some acquisitions.
Wow, the same airline all those years too?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no reason to not divulge. I mean, she was Texas International back in the day, then became Continental, and now became United. So she's gone through those acquisitions, and but she loves what she does, and she's dedicated, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those traits where, man, I think if anybody could recruit someone, they would want to recruit someone that's been in the same job forever, that has that long tenure,
I've had some really good success with quote unquote older candidates. I love how they're a couple of things I see that they even amongst the younger ones is that when you have like any kind of structure that's set up, they're at least the ones I was working with at the time, they were much more likely to go within that structure. I also found that they were quite loyal. I also found that my interactions with them were quite pleasant. I mean, to me, if as long as you can do the work, I'm going to hire you for the job, whatever the case is. And to me, if you don't have like a wide variety, a diversity of thought, whether it's age and background, you lose a lot. So I love having those candidates, those team members rather, that are a little bit older on the team. Because I mean, if we're all young, we're kind of only seeing things from a certain lens. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's diversity at best, right? At its finest, because I I come around and in the room, I always say, there could be 3 people in the room, there could be 30. I'll always say, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I will have a few thoughts and ideas, as I would expect everybody else in this room to have, right? And they're all going to be different. And that's what I value. That's what I love when we engage in conversations, especially here in our TA team, when we meet biweekly. The stuff that we kick around, I mean, it's amazing. And you're getting different perspectives, you're getting different ideas. Look, I've learned from the generations younger than me, right? And older than me. And that's what I love. I mean, I just love to learn. And if you have that mindset, then you're going to love being surrounded by people that are different than you in any form or fashion.
Yeah, love that. And so, Vicky, hopefully we answered your question. Let us know if you have any other follow-ups to that, or in fact, give us some of your thoughts. What have you done in the past that's helped you as well? We'll always love to hear that. We know we don't have all the answers. Okay, I got a fun question for you, and it's also time for a water break. I forgot to tell you about that. We do a water break.
I have my tea break here, trying to.
Water's so good. You got tea, huh?
Mm. Nice green tea.
Okay, so I have this question for you and those in my audience. Okay, would you rather would you rather spend 6 hours lying in a gutter letting the water splash over you, or have to spend the day sitting at the bottom of a public trash can on a city street having people constantly drop garbage on you? Ooh, that is tough. I can't believe I read that question on this thing. Wow, that's a tough one. Can you pick one?
I can. And it came to me pretty quickly. I think I'm going to have to stick with the gutter and the water.
Okay, why is that?
I just feel like, well, at least it's moving. So whatever's in that water is moving versus sitting at the bottom of the can. It's there, it's staying there, and it's going to get worse, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good
That
one.
was my rationale.
I like it. Guys in the comments, what would you guys pick? Would you pick being in the gutter for 6 hours, letting the water splash over you, or have to spend the day sitting at the bottom of a public trash can on a city street having people constantly drop garbage on you? Yeah, I'm gonna go with you, Leon. That's a smart one. Guys in the comments, let me know what you think. Okay, so Leon, I want to ask you this. What are some ways that we can show mindfulness or thinking ahead of time and being intentional with our communication? Let's start with the resume first, if that's even the case, or if you're only talking about verbal. And then let's move to actually having that first phone screen. Give me some examples of it done well.
Sure. So mindfulness will have to be on my side, right? So when I'm looking at a certain position, I've got it, and I've already done the intake with my manager, knowing what exactly they're looking for, kind of the makes and breaks, plus obviously the general description. When I'm looking at a resume, I am pretty critical of resumes, and I hate to be that way, but things just pop out at me, right?
Okay.
So I'm looking at, first thing I really do is I look at attention to detail. I really scan the resume and just kind of look over it, seeing formatting, a couple things, because the attention to detail, to me, it says here, and I'm probably overthinking it sometimes, but how much time did you really spend, on this resume, and really how many times did you look over it? Did you have someone do a once over for you? And thinking this should not have been missed if you had someone do a once over. How much do you really care? I mean, to me, I'm getting that from a resume when I see it. Let's not mention the ones that don't even apply with a resume, but that's a story for a different time.
Okay.
And really then I'm seeing how well does it match? Is it, today we're seeing people that apply to jobs that are just far out there. Your resume is far right, the job is far left, and it doesn't even go. I mean,
Right.
and so how am I without maybe a cover letter in this case, how am I putting that together and saying, well, you're qualified for this role, but I mean, I can't put two and two together there because they're so far off.
Okay.
So I look for the relatability there. Once, and again, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier about being mindful of the resume and the position that you're applying for. I do believe that if you're applying for a director of operations, then your resume needs to everything has to be pertained to operations experience, right? So
okay.
make sure that the word operations or director or those keywords really need to be in there. And I'm not talking about for a keyword search, right?
Right.
I'm not in that game. I'm looking at the relatability. If you're an ops manager and you're applying to be an ops director, I want to see that progression. I want to see what you've done. I want to see how it relates to the job description that we've really posted. That shows me that you really took the time to say, yes, I can do this job that you posted today.
Yeah.
That really gets me prepped for the first phone call, because now I'm really excited to hear you speak on your experience and really how passionate now are you about what you do today in your operations industry. And then 2, how passionate are you about wanting this job or really wanting this job, and tell me why you want it, because it helps me understand where you're coming from, right?
Yeah.
These things, and again, being mindful to it, you're going to figure out real quick whether it's going to be a good fit or not.
Makes sense. Now, so there's 2 things I got from what you were saying just now. One is you're looking at part of the communication is, did they apply for a job that's remotely close to what they qualify for? It was one of the things I got from it. And then the other one was the attention to detail on the resume. For the attention to detail on the resume, do you also look at the job itself? Because some jobs don't necessarily you don't need as much attention to detail as with other jobs. Do you take into consideration, or do you pretty much look at all resumes the same, whether they pay the proper attention to the details like spelling and formatting and all that stuff?
I mean, I do.
Interesting.
I think because I help a lot of my friends that, I think they're thankful they have an HR buddy,
right?
When it comes to resume reviews. And I have a lot of my friends send me their resumes just so I can review it. And I approach it the same way. I immediately start looking at, and I think when you've been doing it for a long time, it just becomes second nature.
Yeah, it does.
One of my pet peeves, if you want to know something personal about me,
yes.
I am a big stickler about if you're currently in the position, the tense of the verb should be current, in the current tense, right? Versus all things past should be in past tense. So that's one of the first things I point out, and I just start grinding my teeth, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. To me, that's attention to detail.
Yeah.
And so while you say there are positions that may not require the attention to detail, I think to me, it speaks on, and I have 2 schools of thought there. Some people just don't know that, right? They've never been taught that. Mm-hmm. But even so, I think it's, what is your resume saying about you, right? You have to remember this resume is your voice until we give you that call. So what do you want it to say?
Okay, well, it's valid. And so those who are watching, if you're in that boat and you're applying, make sure you got a buddy or somebody looking at your resume. Make sure it's hitting all those points. You got the present and present tense and the past tense. And make sure there's no
formatting. All that has to be consistent.
Yeah.
No typos. And look, it doesn't. And if you can find someone that's been in HR, that's a hiring manager, that's used to looking at resumes, those will be ideal. Even an English major, and just a little footnote to me, before I switched my major to HR, I actually was going to be an English teacher. So I think that's why I become a stickler on formatting and resumes. I think that's the inner English major potentially coming out.
Well, I mean, and also not only you, but also there's certain hiring managers who feel the same way. So let's say let's just pretend for a second. Let's just say 30% of the hiring managers think that way, and we're applying for several jobs. Don't take the chance that the job that you just applied for contains one of those 30% who feel that, hey, look, the resume has got to be on point, or we're just not gonna consider you. I can just tell you this too. In my career, I've had physicians, nurses, I mean, highly educated people still have mistakes on their resume. So that's why I was like, okay,
I
wow.
Yeah,
So
I agree. It happens. We're human, right?
yeah,
We're so human, and I owe this to one of my former leaders who gave me this phrase, and it's called the second set of eyes. And you always have to have that second set of eyes in everything that you do, and find that person who's going to be your second set of eyes, so that they can just review whatever it is that you need them to review to ensure that there's hopefully no mistakes. If minimal, they can correct them,
yeah.
and then you submit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a lesson for all of us who are watching. And then okay, before we move over to the actual first phone communication, do you want to say anything about cover letters? Are you pro or con cover letters? And if so,
I
when?
want to hear your thoughts on this too,
Okay.
Rollis. But so with cover letters, it's interesting. I think by natural happenstance, I think that they're slowly dying.
Okay.
But I will tell you from my perspective, I'm not seeing them that much, and I really don't mind that I'm not seeing them. Right? I'm looking for the meat, which is the resume. Now, the only time that the example that I gave earlier about someone having experience in X but looking for a position in Y that's
Hmm.
completely different, I think a cover letter would be appropriate there to help bridge the gap of why they're trying to make this move. That's the only time I feel like maybe a cover letter would be definitely needed to help explain the story there.
Yeah, I agree. So I do feel like there are those times when you want to have the cover letter. Let's go ahead and have it, especially if it's not super clear or obvious that you're a total fit for the job from the resume. I would want to explain a little bit more. Like, let's say I'm an ER nurse and I'm applying for an ICU position. Maybe I want to let them know what my connection is. What's the reason why I really want to learn to work in the ICU? So I think that those are areas where a cover letter would be very good to have one. I also think for executive positions it would be good, to have a cover letter. Um, but let's say I've been an ER nurse for 10 years and I'm applying for an ER nurse position. Probably don't need one. I mean, to be honest, I just if I see
Right.
that on there,
Yeah.
I'm jumping to get on the phone and talk to that person. They go ahead and get them locked up. But yeah, I would think anywhere where there's like a question mark or if you feel like you need to explain. But I'm like you, I kind of do see them at some point kind of going away. But there's still quite a few out there. Going back to my 30% example. I don't know if it's 30%. I'm just making up that number, but there's a percentage out
Sure.
there of hiring managers and recruiters who appreciate a cover letter. Ones I know very well. They're like adamant. Cover letters are very important. And then I can also talk to several others who say like, yeah, I never look at cover letters. I know me as a recruiter, in my experience, as a contingency recruiter, I'm quickly looking for the experience on the resume. I'm not even looking at the cover letter. I might look at the cover letter after I've looked at the resume, but if it's not on the resume, I'm not going that far for the positions that I was working on. But I'm sure you work on a much wider variety than what I was working on. So I think that there probably is a place for that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Does the variety matter in your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think you and I are on the same page there. I think it does matter again for the position itself, right? But also if your background doesn't lend itself to naturally tell the story of why you're applying to this position, then I think a cover letter should be needed. I agree with the fact that I like your approach. And look, it's great that you include a cover letter. I'm going to look at the resume first because we're looking to see, like we talked about earlier, can you do the job? Are you qualified? Can you do the job? Then, the cover letter is going to be the kind of the nice cherry on top after the fact, saying, oh man, this makes so much more sense now. Just reading, it's kind of like reading the end of the book before even starting it, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with your approach, and actually I'll probably start taking that and doing it because it won't change my thought process. Because I think maybe a cover letter reading it, you're already gearing something in your head after reading it and then trying to look at the resume and be objective. I think that it may change, and so now I'm gonna switch my approach there and do. I'll see the cover letter, but then I'll acknowledge the resume first, then go back to the cover letter.
Well, even the name cover letter, right? Just that term comes from when people used to mail in their resumes, right? And they would have the cover letter on top of the resume. So you'd always see the letter first, the resume second. But fast forward, 30, 40, 50 years later, we're still using the same term, cover letter, when it's rarely ever a cover letter. It's like usually in an email as an attachment or in the applicant tracking system. It's not really covering anything. You have a choice on what you see first. So I'm just going to go right for the gusto first. We see
That's so true. That is so true. That's too funny. I didn't even think about it like that. And yeah, cover letters have been around forever, right? And we're still, after everything that's evolved in recruitment and in HR, yet we're still tried and true with a good old cover letter.
Okay, before I move on, I got one more question before I move on to the communication on the phone screen. Do you think there will ever be a day and time when the resume will be outdated and people are going to be basically just like doing like video stuff? I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like video communication?
That's a great question. Um, I know that it's picking up a little bit, right? And just in today's world, and I like it. I think there's going to be some pros and cons. So to answer your question directly, I do not think that the resume will ever go away.
Okay.
The paper resume,
That's
right?
fair.
I think a video is going to be the adder. It'll be an adder to the resume. But I like it. I am a big fan of that because, again, I want to be mindful of you and see your mannerisms, see how you speak, your personality, right? And I'll
Mm-hmm.
get that through how you speak. Like, well, my hands are down here, but I use my hands a lot when I talk, right? And you'll get to see that. And people that study body language, they'll tell you many times what certain things mean, and you'll learn a lot just about seeing a person speak, just like we are today,
Yeah.
right? So I'm gonna love seeing more of those video interviews. I just don't think that the resume will go away because, again, is that really? And I guess the rhetorical question to you and to the group would be: does the video interview really tell me that you can do the job? Are you really going to be able to, in from 1 second to the next, really tell me that I can do this job? I think the paper is going to be there so that we can always go back to review it and say, well, how many years of experience did he have doing this, or
Yeah.
what skill set did he do in this job? I think that's where we're going to use that all the time.
Okay. All right. Fair. Okay. So let's move on to the phone thing. So a candidate's talking to you on the phone. Give me some ideas of candidates who you can tell are very mindful. They communicate extremely well. And then maybe if you want to give me a kind of a reverse example of that, a converse of that, of someone who doesn't really communicate with mindfulness. Give me some examples if you don't mind, or one example.
Sure. So the candidates that I've spoken to recently that I feel like are very mindful are very prompt, right? So let's say we've scheduled an interview and I schedule it for 2 o'clock and I'm calling them at 1:59. They answer promptly. And even the ones that say, hi, my name's Joe, is this Leon calling? And I've gotten those a few times and I'm like, wow, yes, it is. Thank you.
That is
And
good.
and it's almost like not taking control, but really being the first to engage in the conversation, which
Yeah.
again, some people say engaged is part of being mindful.
Yeah.
So I think that automatically right there, I mean, that shows me that they're ready. They're expecting my call, the whole 9 yards. And as we get into conversation, right, you'll hear me say a lot when I'm trying to explain something to someone, I'll say, does that make sense? And I'm very careful. And I always say, I'm not asking, do you understand? I'm asking, do I make sense? Is what I'm saying
Yeah.
making sense? Because I want to be understood. I thrive on being understood, and so that they have a better understanding of what the issue is or what we need to get done, right? Um, or the position. As I'm describing a position to them, I'm like, well, it's a little unique, and I would go on and say A, B, C, X, Y, Z. I go, does that make sense? They're like, yes, it does. Or if it doesn't, they're like, well, what do you mean by? So that kind of segues into my next part about being mindful. Those that are being mindful are asking questions really kind of during the conversation, because I love a conversation that is very free flowing, right? It's literally a conversation. It's not question, answer, question, answer,
Right.
question, answer, right? What I love about the conversation is we're both asking some questions, right? So I'm asking a question, we speak, we talk, and then maybe they bounce a question back to me. That's great. Sure. And typically I'll tell them, well, that's a great question. And I may not have the answer, or really some of them surprise me and give great questions and I'll even tell them, like, no one's asked me that question before. That's a great question. And I make it clear. And I think that's also, just the smallest thing.
Yeah.
That phrase right there, acknowledging that they asked a great question. No one's really asked me that question before. I think it gives them a sense of confidence and a boost, right?
Yeah,
During
absolutely.
what can be a very nerve-wracking process. I always try to make it very relaxed, very almost, informal in our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I even say that in the beginning, saying, look, I want this to be a relaxed conversation, fairly informal. I want to get to know you a little bit more in your background. I'll tell you more about the job, and we'll talk about potential next steps. And I go, how does that sound? And they'll say, okay, sounds great. It's how you're level setting the expectations with your
candidates, so that they can be mindful of what's happening, right? I think we're only circling back to us as recruiters we have a unique perspective being on both sides of the desk at one point. You have to put yourself in their shoes. You have to remember how you felt or you were feeling when you go through that process. We do it day in, day out. The minute we lose touch with being mindful about that, you lose this feeling. You lose this engagement of really engaging with your candidates.
Absolutely.
And it could be one of your best candidates. And if you're not engaged like you should be, they may be turned off. We're the face of the organization. We're the face for these people. You've got to be on.
I agree 100%. And so when they answer the phone, they're saying, "Hey, this is such. Is this Leon?" And then when they're asking the great questions, do you feel like this right here?
Honestly, I do. I wish sometimes I get on some of my Zoom interviews, I think they can see my face because my eyes will get big and I'll be like, oh, I'll have that's a great question. And I tell them, I give them the kudos for asking being thoughtful and mindful and asking such great questions.
Yeah.
I want that because at the end of the day, I say it again, we have to want you as much as you want us. It has to be mutually beneficial.
Yes.
And I always say, I want to give you all the information that I can for you to make the best informed decision of, do you want to proceed or not? Right.
Absolutely.
And people love that approach. Just the feedback that I've gotten from my candidates, people have thanked me over and over for being so open, honest, and thoughtful. Right.
I love it. It's key. It's so key. So one of the things that I was telling someone just the other day, I was on an interview. Oh, he was with Ahmed. He was asking about tips. And I was like, if you can for those candidates out there, if you get really good at asking questions, you're going to be far and above your other candidates who have applied for the same job. If you ask really great questions. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree 100%. And we'll even go a little bit further and say, be unique in your questions, right? So what's one of the common questions we'll probably get, right? Because we always ask if the phone interview is not going so well, as we begin to wrap it up, I typically say, do you have any questions for me? I say it regardless, right?
Right.
What questions might you have for me? And you can feel sometimes in candidates that they know they have to ask a question.
Yes.
Because that's what they're taught. But a question someone may ask me, well, what would be expected of me in my first 90 days? And I say, and I'm really nice in this question to pose to me, right? Let's set the stage, right? The question's being posed to me as the recruiter, not the hiring manager.
Right.
What would be the expectations of me in the first 90 days? I respond with, That's a great question. Should you move on to the hiring manager interview? Then I think that would be a great question for them. To me, what I just realized, when they ask that question is like they're asking a question just to ask a question. They are not
Yeah.
or mindful in the questions that they're being asked. Think about what I do. Personally, we know what I like. I like when people ask me, what are your thoughts on your company? How do you feel?
Oh yeah.
Like, what do you like? What do you not like about it? And I think it's different for us getting that question because now we feel like we're being interviewed. But I talk about the good things, but I also talk about things that can be improved, or I talk about any daily struggles that I may go through, because I think it has to be transparent, right? It's not another phrase you'll hear me say too. It's not all daisies and roses all the time, right?
Right.
So we have a couple thunder showers every now and then, but only to bring more daisies and roses.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot because I mean, sometimes we have a tendency to just be super rosy about everything, but the more rosy you are, the less believable you are too. If you don't share anything that could be challenges. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I agree with that 100% because no one's perfect. No company is perfect. Um, we'll all have our struggles. And I think to share those is being mindful, is being truthful, is being honest, so that they know that the organization is real, the
Mm-hmm.
organization is normal in the sense. Um, and I think that's imperative that, I feel like that would be a good question for those to ask of the recruiter specifically, not necessarily how we feel,
Right.
but what struggles do you see in your organization? And how do you deal with those struggles? I think that's a unique question that's never been asked of me. But that goes back to answering the initial question, right? Asking those questions will give you the one up, but be unique in those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Ask things that are not, if you go Google questions to ask an interviewer, questions to ask a hiring manager, we're, I say the interviewer, those seasoned interviewers, senior hiring managers will know, right? What's
Yeah.
typical. And some are legitimate, right? I think asking what the expectations are in the first 90 days to a hiring manager is a legitimate question. Because you'll find out as a candidate, does this hiring manager have very high expectations, or are they low? Or are they in the middle?
Yeah.
I think that's a legit question, but spice it up with some unique questions.
I agree, and I would add to that. I know one of the things that Lou Adler talks about is a year from the start date. Like, what would success look like if I was in this position, or what would successful can look like in this position after they've been here for a year? Like, what would that look like? What kind of performance and what experience would that be like? And just kind of get into that whole discussion, so that we're not looking just past the probate. Well, I know last days is not really such thing as a probationary period anymore, but the 90 days, where they decide.
Introductory period.
Introductory period. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sweetening that up for me. Okay, I have a question for you. My last question. What was the funniest experience you ever had related to your work or to your career?
Funniest experience. That's a good one. That's a good question.
And I have an alternate question if this is easier for you. I remember you had a picture of your beautiful daughter. It was like a year or so ago on LinkedIn, and I would want to know what's the most important lesson you feel like you got from your parents that you passed on to your daughter. So you can answer either one of those two questions.
Look, let me take both.
Okay.
I can take both of those. So
Awesome.
in my career, I will tell you that, it combines both with my daughter. I was part of the HR Houston Gulf Coast Symposium Committee a couple years back, and I could not find a sitter for my daughter, and so here I am, asking the basically our chairman was like, "Hey, I have to bring my daughter with me to this meeting. Is it okay? We'll sit in the back." And she says, "Sure, no problem, fine." And we're in this meeting. There's probably 60 people in this meeting, right? We're all going through some introductory notes and talking about the symposium. My daughter's watching my iPad with her headphones on, and all in the middle of nowhere, she just yells out, "Bazinga!" like in the middle of this meeting. And I'm like, oh my God. So while in my career, while it's volunteer, that was, I was so red and it just came out of nowhere. She was quiet through the whole meeting and just so random. And everyone laughed and it broke up the meeting a little bit, but I was so embarrassed. I've probably never been more red in my life. But that's my daughter. And really, so what my parents have taught me, and that I am continuously teaching her is kindness. And
I love that.
Obviously, if you're on my LinkedIn, you'll see my banner is our brand, Hello Human Kindness. One of the major reasons I love our organization today is we talk about human kindness almost every day and what that means to us. And I talked about how mindfulness begets human kindness. So take that and marinate with it a little bit for yourselves, because I think that if we practice that across the board, in times like this right now, the world needs more human kindness. And I'm so proud to work for an organization that is our brand. But
that's awesome.
I teach that with her every day, to be kind, to acknowledge folks. And she's great in being very courteous to folks. She doesn't know a stranger. I think she's a little bit like me. She's very talkative. She's very engaging. I get compliments on her all the time on how well-spoken she is, how kind she is, how sweet she is. And I love that. And to me, it gives me the reminder that I'm doing somewhat of a decent job every day with her.
That's awesome. How old is she?
She will be 8 on Thursday.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so what's her first name?
Her name is Sophia.
Sophia, this is for you. See, look at all these people that are clapping for Sophia right now. They're so happy because she shows all this wonderful human kindness. This is for Sophia. Awesome.
She'll love that. That'll be great.
Well, very good. This time has flown by. I cannot believe how quickly it's flown by. I have one more question for you before we end it. And then once you answer the question, you can give us your last tip of the day, what you want to share, whether it's for a hiring manager who may be watching, or if it's for a candidate who's going to interview with a hiring manager, or perhaps for our fellow recruiters. Okay. All right. So
sure.
My last question is going to be a would you rather question. Okay. This is an interesting one here. Would you rather, if you had to, I've asked this a few times on my show, would you rather, if you had to, do without supermarkets or do without convenience stores and fast food restaurants for the rest of your life? Which one would you take? So you have a choice, either do without supermarkets or you do without convenience stores and fast food restaurants for the rest of your life. By the way, what's your favorite fast food place?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say that my favorite fast food place is gotta be Chick-fil-A.
I knew you were gonna say Chick-fil-A. I knew it.
Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is just, it hits close to my heart.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great
one.
I love Chick-fil-A too. Okay, I like Chick-fil-A. Whataburger though, man. If I need a burger, if I'm really hungry, Whataburger's gonna get it for me, man, every time.
True. That's very true. You can't go wrong with a good Whataburger.
Chipotle. What about Chipotle? You like Chipotle?
Yeah. Oh, I can do. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Look, I'm a man who loves food. So look, a little thing about me: half Greek, half Mexican. So you have a Greeksican here on the show today.
I love that.
The only Greeksican you'll ever have on your show. So I am a man of food. I've got to indulge in a lot of different foods.
I'm excited about having a Greeksican on the show. This is amazing. I love Middle Eastern. I love pretty much all the Middle Eastern type foods, but Greek we do go. I was so sad when they closed Yaya Mary's. That was one of our favorite spots.
That was a good spot.
But they're good.
Spot. But I'll give a plug for Nico Nico's.
Oh, Nico Nico's,
here in the Houston area.
Yes, they're good too. I like Nico Nico's as well. Okay, so now let's go back to our question. So if you had to do without one, which one are you going to do without? You going to do without the convenience stores or do without, do without convenience stores and fast food restaurants, which would include Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, Whataburger, all those guys? Or would you rather do without supermarkets? Which one?
So your question is so timely, just because of the impending storm that we have coming in Houston, and I reminded myself that I need to go to the supermarket.
Yes.
So my answer is based on the immediate need that I do need a supermarket. So I can go without fast food and convenience stores, and the rationale also behind that is, while I love fast food and I love convenience stores because there's always good snacks in there, I need to get better at eating better.
Okay.
So it would help me tremendously by getting rid of convenience stores and fast food.
Okay. I'll go with that too. Guys in the comments, let me know even if you're watching the replay right now, I still want to know, which one would you rather do without, supermarkets or convenience stores and fast food restaurants? Leon he's already given us his thoughts. I'm gonna go with you, Leon. I'm gonna go without the fast food. As much as I love the fast food and convenience stores, I'm gonna go with supermarkets because I can still get the stuff I like there, right? I can still get the stuff there, and still get the healthy stuff. I get everything at the supermarket. So
that's right.
Yeah, Joanne said supermarket too. By the way, she just said that.
I saw that. Nice. 3 for 3 on that.
Okay, give us your
good.
last outgoing tip. Whatever was your best one, go ahead and give it to us. Or even if you want to repeat one.
So I'm gonna combine it really quick, and I'll give equal opportunity here. So I'll have one for the recruiter, the hiring manager, and the candidate, right?
Okay.
So quite frankly, I'll tell you, for the candidate experience, be mindful with your resumes, pay attention to the detail, and ensure when you're applying that ATS system, make sure your resume is attached. More often than not, we're seeing some resumes that are not being attached in my previous history. It's important, right? That's your story. That's your shot. Make sure it's there. For recruiters, I beg you to practice mindfulness when going through your candidates, because so much now we're hearing that people are getting lost in the ATS system and never hearing anything. I've made it a personal goal of mine to disposition our candidates, right? To really let them know yes or no within a good 24 to 48 hours of applying. Now, whether that's a canned email or not, right? There's a lot of applicants, and I wish I could respond to each one uniquely, but I just don't have the bandwidth for that in the moment. So, but I think I'm even getting feedback from some of those candidates that are getting the rejection emails, unfortunately, saying, at least thank you for letting me know, right? So even a rejection email, how you've posed it, how you can create it and create a canned email using some mail merge fields with your ATS. Do that. I can't say it enough. I think that we need to treat everyone like human beings, and they deserve a response one way or the other. And lastly, for my hiring managers, please, again, work with your recruiter, be a partner with your recruiter, and really evaluate your candidate pool, and make help lean on your recruiter in terms of making the best decision for your team. We have a certain set of skills, if you will, that will help you pick your best candidate so that turnover stays low, engagement stays high. We want that for you. We want that for our candidate. We are our candidate champion, right? We want the same thing for you. We want you to have a good candidate in there that can do the job, that's happy, right? Mm-hmm. So work with your recruiters, partner with them, be kind to them as well.
I love that. See, this is how our audience feels. When they watch this show, this is how they feel, because we helped them, right? We helped them do some pretty cool stuff. And if I had an audience here for you, I'm sure they'd be watching and listening to what you're saying, and just burst of applause, because that was a great show. Appreciate all the great tips that you gave us. It's a great show today. Appreciate you being on, Leon. Tell everyone, give everyone at CHI regards. We appreciate the work you guys are doing in the community. And let's say bye to everyone. Bye, everyone.
All right. Have a great day.
All right, hold on for 1 second before I end the stream here. Joanne will let me know. All right. Yeah, you did awesome today, man.
Oh, that was good. That was fun. I'm really passionate